Guilt is so hot right now. And as soon as I say hot right now, I go straight to Zoolander. Oh, Hans, it's so hot right now. But what you're here for is guilt. And this is a guilt viewed through the lens of the Oracle of the Cosmic Way, I Ching, Oracle of the Cosmic Way. And why it's important, it's because a lot of us have been trained to see that guilt is a normal part of the human condition. And I've got a spoiler for you. It is not. It is not part of the human condition. It is something that's been created to keep people who are smart and intelligent and thoughtful under the thumb of some emotional control. All right, I've got some tools here that are going to help set you free from guilt so you don't have to revisit it anymore. You don't have to keep undoing all of the great inner work that you do, feeling sorry for people or getting dragged back in because you feel you don't want to disappoint anyone, right? This is a game changer for people who are smart, who are spiritually inclined, and who also want to live a life full of vitality, including relationships that are full of vitality, all right? So let's go. First, I'm going to start with a glossary of what guilt means within the context of this text. And then I'm going to jump around a bit and jump to different chapters of the book to unpack more about guilt, how to deprogram it, and some of the pernicious or dangerous roots that we have that guilt has, tying back to the ego, and how the ego is really a parasite that will quite readily walk over the dead body of its host, you, after it's finished sucking and looshing all of your attention, energy, focus, and chi. Okay, guilt. The sage has made it clear that the word guilt and all ideas related to it do not have a cosmic basis. This includes the idea of original guilt or sin, as well as the idea that we become guilty for whatever we do or fail to do. The idea of guilt associated with the image of an inextinguishable stain is an invention of the collective ego to keep the individual under its control. Through its text, the I Ching gives evidence that the cosmos does not hold anything against us forever. Moreover, making mistakes is considered to be an essential part of our learning process. Going against our true natures creates cosmic blame, which can be corrected by regretting our mistake and extinguishing the mistaken idea that caused us to make the mistake. That line's really important. I'm going to say that again. Going against our true natures creates cosmic blame, which can be corrected by regretting our mistake and extinguishing the mistaken idea that caused us to make the mistake. If we continue making the same mistake, we create a fate. But even a fate only runs for a limited period of time. The end of the fate extinguishes the cosmic blame. Like blame, a fate can be ended at any given moment by correcting what has caused it. See page 542, Freeing Yourself from a Fate, and page 39, Guilt, Blame and Shame. We're going to jump to page 39 in a minute, but before I do, I want to come back to this chapter here, okay, this paragraph here. Now, it's super important that we learn what it feels like to regret in the body. And clients that have come from like a religious background where guilt is a very common mechanism used to control children, and then you grow up as adults who are afraid to be guilty. Hell, you might even be in a group of people and somebody else does something wrong and someone yells out, an authority yells out, "Hey, who did this?" You know, and there might be a part of you that like unconsciously or consciously goes, "Oh, maybe did I have something to do with that?" Like, because you can feel the accusation energy in the field, and because you have the hook in your body that latches onto that because of the guilt mechanisms, the guilt programming, you automatically assume, "Oh, I'm a little bit guilt. Maybe I did," because that would happen to me all the time. And enough for me to go, "Oh, I hope they don't look at me right now because I look really guilty. I feel guilty," even though I had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with whatever's taken place. Like chocolates being stolen at school, someone breaking a bike or breaking a toy, magazines or books getting torn. So who tore this book? So, straight away there's like a shock in your body. It could have been me. Like, I feel guilty already even though I hadn't done anything. Right? Is that you? Do you feel guilty in situations where you have done nothing, but there's an authority in the field that's put a request out there or an accusation out there and it hooks straight into you, right? So the next part here in this paragraph is what regret and remorse feels like. This is really important. One of my clients was struggling with, well, John, like, I just feel guilty all the time. So, okay, check out this chapter in the I Ching. He watched my old video. I needed to update this video because I can feel the energy is different now. And it was time. And he said, I've mentioned in that old video about remorse. So remorse is something where you go, I'm genuinely sorry. This is where a genuine apology can come from. Even though, to go a little bit deeper, trying to forgive someone is something else that's outside of the cosmic whole. But that's another conversation, okay? It's another video. Now, doubling back to this, regretting. Being able to feel what regret feels like. It's like, yeah. Like you made a promise to a partner and you didn't fulfill it. Or a client. You know what? Yeah, I'm super sorry. But if you keep on letting that person down, then something else is going on. It's most likely some form of pattern, either a love map pattern or a life map pattern that's reoccurring, this thing that's gone unrepaired, okay? Now, the bottom of this bit here, like blame, a fate can be ended at any given moment by correcting what has caused it. If you're new to this version of the I Ching, there are a series of techniques that you can use to eliminate a fate, okay? To stop the fate from running its course. And it's so important that if you want to live a life like this, to develop a relationship with this text, because there's a new world, there's a world that's been hidden through religiosity, through smarts and intellect, that this I Ching helps remember. And it's a world of the invisible and consciousness in other forms that can help us live our life, from finding relationships to deprogramming emotions that seem to get stuck in our mind, or getting rid of imps. And imps can be a thought that jumps into our head when we're ingesting material that is slightly off-center, right? So this version of the I Ching, and I'm talking about guilt here and I'm going a little bit off tangent here, I want to make this point emphatically clear. This version of the I Ching has got technology and tools in it that can set us free, for the better phrase, you know. The I Ching is under human design, okay, is under the gene keys, all right? So those two systems which have been distorted through time, distorted because they're not met with the invisible world. They're met through the brute force of humans being in the center of the universe, all right? This I Ching speaks about humans being the center of the universe. That's not true. But we're raised to be that way. We're raised through our intelligence and things like guilt, where guilt makes us very self-centered, right? Next, let's jump to page 39. This is a big book if you buy it in the written, okay, in text, in the paper. I use the Kindle version, and there is no audiobook on this. There is, however, I've read various hexagrams over the year, and there's another guy who was one of the founders in cosmic human design. And cosmic human design is based on this version of the I Ching and sidereal astrology, so where the planets sit real time in the sky. What a mathematical placement. And why that's important is because human design that uses not this version of the I Ching and not sidereal astrology is the ego. Okay, it's the egoic character, the egoic personality that's been formed. When you use sidereal, it's the true self. It's the non-egoic self. And when I ran my sidereal chart through cosmic human design, that looked like me, present me. That's who I am. When I look at my other chart, my tropical astrology chart and use the other version of the I Ching, it's egoic. It's the part of me that like gets off on my chart. Like it's the one that's like, yeah, I'm so special. I'm just so special because my chart is so like 0.0000001% of the population have that, right? So that's why it's important. I felt important to mention that to anyone who's into human design and gene keys. All right. Guilt, blame, and shame. Guilt as a permanent stain that has been laid upon human nature is primarily a Western concept which the sage informs us has no cosmic basis. It is connected with the story of the fall of Adam and Eve from paradise, and with human sexuality as the cause of original guilt or sin. Throughout the feudal history of the West, guilt has mostly served as the collective ego's instrument to control the behavior of the individual. While there is no evidence that the Chinese had a concept of guilt, most of the writers of the Confucian school nevertheless looked at human animal nature as the main reason humans have deviated from their original good nature. That idea is also behind the Taoist religion's emphasis on mental control of the body. Super fucking important. Super important, okay? Both the idea of guilt and the idea that human animal nature is the source of evil slander and falsely divide the wholeness of the individual's nature and lock various helpers in his psyche in spells, depriving the person of important abilities. The concept of guilt is also connected with the threats and punishments used by the collective ego to install its program of musts and must-nots in the individual's psyche. The guilt that is aroused by going against a must-not serves to reinstall its program when a person has decided to follow his inner truth. I'm going to say that again. The guilt that is aroused by going against a must-not serves to reinstall its program when a person has decided to follow his inner truth. I want to speak more about that after this. The threat of becoming guilty is connected with the image of an inextinguishable stain put upon his person, one which excludes him forever from social acceptance. The Chinese have a similar threat in the branding phenomenon associated with shame. Shame differs from guilt in that it only involves a person's public image. A person who commits a violation will suffer shame only if the violation becomes public knowledge. Because the shame is considered to extend to his family or community, the society is obsessed with the threat of shame. A similar threat is found in the American culture in its continual rewriting of histories to cleanse the national and community memory of all negative happenings that would stain the national or community pride. Neither guilt nor shame, as defined above, have cosmic relevance. The mention of blame in the I Ching refers to cosmic blame, which is incurred when a person has betrayed or compromised his true nature. No blame can be a saying that a person is in harmony with the cosmos, or that a person is incorrectly blaming himself due to judging himself by the standards of the collective ego. The sage informs us that cosmic blame is not a permanent stain, but can be extinguished at any time the person recognizes and rids himself of the mistaken idea that has caused the blame. When a person does not free himself of the cause of his blame, but continues to act against his true nature, he creates a fate. Fate, as discussed earlier, can be ended in several ways. Cosmic blame is extinguished with the end of the fate. Despite the fact that a child absorbs the program of the collective ego during a time when his ability of discernment is not fully formed, he nevertheless experiences the conflict of this program with his inner truth. It is felt as a background anxiety that contains a message, experienced during certain moments of youth and adolescence, that following the ego program will betray his true nature. These are the first moments in which cosmic blame can be incurred. Part of the collective ego's strategy to keep the individual within its system is to occupy him with looking for someone or something outside himself to blame. It either preoccupies him with blaming himself individually, with accepting group blame, or with focusing on another individual or group as the culprit. The first step in freeing the true self is to say the inner no to the entire idea of guilt and to the term culprit with all that it implies. Neither guilt nor culprit is part of the cosmic vocabulary, and neither has a place in the cosmic harmony. Even the collective ego is not a culprit. It is a juggernaut of ideas and institutions that maintain themselves only through our continued permission. We have the option to free ourselves from them by deprogramming them word by word, image by image, and phrase by phrase. We cannot do this, however, if we see the collective ego as a monstrous force and a culprit, for this view only energizes it and keeps it alive as an objective identity. Saying the inner no brings about the transformation needed to open all of the prison doors created by the mind. The importance of the no is in fact that it undoes the inadvertent yes we have formally said through our acquiescence to the collective ego. Indeed, the inner no is the most direct means to remove ourselves individually from the demonic sphere of consciousness and its parallel reality, while at the same time diminishing its influence. Okay. That might be heavy for a lot of you who aren't familiar with this, who are new to this. And why this is important to go into is because so many people, particularly who struggle in relationships, are bookended by guilt. Bookended by guilt to express whatever their wants and needs are. Bookended by guilt. Bookended meaning like each side of a row of books, you have bookends that stop the books from falling over, and guilt is on either side. So it props up your identity of who you are right now today. But as you listen to this and absorb this, those bookends will start to dissolve and your identity will come into question. Who have I been? Because people who struggle in relationships with guilt, I'm going to go back to that, is that you are afraid to disappoint someone, but then because you haven't done the underlying map recalibration work, you kind of force your opinion or force your way of belief either into yourself or onto the other person. For example, somebody does something wrong in your business, like your partner mucks up your business somehow, like accidentally takes a call from a client or is taking energy from your business or doesn't seem to prioritize how important it is for you to do certain steps throughout the day. So what happens is if you're so attached to love and you have this pattern of afraid to speak your wants and your needs, then you might hold back a little bit because you don't want to make the other person feel guilty. You don't want to make the other person feel accountable for their behavior. So what happens is you don't say anything and then your business starts to suffer. But it's not even about the guilt anymore. It's about you not being authentic, because that's what guilt does. It removes your true self from the picture. It puts an emotion in place that's been hard-coded into you that stops you from being who you really are. It stops you from just being able to say either an internal no or an external no to a partner. But if your underlying love map is corrupted or not calibrated, then you're going to naturally attract someone who's going to bring that kind of chaos into your life anyway. So part of redoing your love map and life map is understanding that some of these higher level concepts like guilt and shame and blame, ego, collective ego, keep us trapped in the cycles which lure us back into old patterning, which lure us back into old thinking. Because they're not just a belief structure, they're a body structure. And this version of the I Ching speaks specifically to body. I'm so grateful for it. It speaks specifically to the work of Wilhelm Reich in that armoring and ego are one and the same thing. Ego armoring. Ego armoring. The musculature in your body holds the memories which just trying to change your belief doesn't touch. I'm going to say that again. That the ego is part of your musculature, your fascia, your skin. And it doesn't matter how much you try and change your beliefs, it's still in there. All right? Beliefs aren't just a mental thing. It's a full body somatic thing. And this version of the I Ching speaks to it, which is so important, right? Where do I want to jump to next? I did 39, did the glossary. All right. So both the idea of guilt and the idea that human animal nature is the source of evil, slander, and falsely divide the wholeness of the individual's nature, unlock various helpers in his psyche in spells, depriving the person of his important. Okay. What this also speaks to is the importance of the animal nature, right? And in more purity-based coachings and relationship coachings, despises the animal body, and some of them put it on a pedestal, okay? Where in the polarity space, you might see this purity of men only men, women only women, only men can be this way, only women can be this way. And it also has this umbrella of religiosity that can be put over it too, where this was God's design, okay? But you see, the perniciousness and the danger in that is that in God's design, God being some authoritarian father figure who you have to pledge allegiance to, otherwise you'll spend all of the afterlife in eternal damnation if you don't subscribe, that version of God despises the animal body, despises it, makes the animal body wrong, makes it something that has to be bounded by rules of adultery. The animal body doesn't care about adultery, okay? The animal body is the animal body. There is no morality around the animal body. So when you start making that wrong, when you start making it, putting these labels on it that, oh, you must not have sex before marriage, you must not commit adultery, you must not have these thoughts, you must, okay? Otherwise you'll be punished by death. It corners someone with guilt and shame. And then we wonder why in these religious communities that swear celibacy, where there's sexual deviancy, because the body is being suppressed and then repressed by rules, and the mind cannot contain the animal body. Then we wonder why Christians end up having affairs. Christians end up, their vitality dies in their relationships. They're trying to like brute force their way into intimacy. It's like, no, it's so much simpler than that. They've been sold a lie, and the lie perpetuates itself because it's part of the collective ego. The collective ego wants you to suffer in that space because it lives off your chi energy, of the suffering that's burnt through the chi energy. It loves living off your vitality, so it will recruit more people to its cause. Deprogramming guilt. Because of the fact that guilt can undo your deprogramming, it is recommended to begin by deprogramming anything related to it. The false concept of guilt, the spell of original guilt/sin, and any ideas of guilt surrounding the mistaken ideas or beliefs identified or self-images you wish to deprogram. If guilt is not deprogrammed successfully, it will reinstall the mistaken ideas, beliefs, or self-images that have guilt invisibly connected with them. So important, guys, okay? Because I know I'm connected with a lot of people who've come from religious institution and cults, okay? can be one and the same, but a cult is distinctively different. What can also show up in there is a lot of sexual shame, especially for women. And they do a lot of these deprogramming workshops, a lot of rage workshops, and they talk about the patriarchy and how upset they've been and how if the matriarchy was just installed, it would magically be better. Patriarchy, matriarchy, the same side of the same egoic coin. So they can try and deprogram all these things by doing these exercises, doing somatic release. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a look at the foundations of guilt, it just finds its way back in there. You keep on attracting partners or husbands or lovers or partners and lovers into your life that still live out that cult pattern of sexual guilt and sexual shame. This is part of love mapping. You can try and brute force your way through all the beliefs. You're still going to attract someone who mimics what you learned in early childhood. Before deprogramming guilt, you need to be clear about the definition of guilt, and I did that at the start of this, at page 39. Number 1, deprogramming the false concept of guilt. To free yourself from the false concept of guilt as an inextinguishable stain on your nature, do a mini meditation in which you ask the helper that frees people from guilt to free you from the concept of guilt. Also ask the cosmic doctor to do what is necessary to erase the effect the guilt has had on you. Ask each day whether you need to repeat this procedure until the answer is no, then thank the helpers. So we're going a little bit deeper into the I Ching, this version of the I Ching, okay? Because you're asking the helpers, and the helpers are not angels, they're not spirits, they're part of consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. We are all connected through consciousness. The helpers are too. That field of consciousness uses love as the attractor. Love is the force of attraction. So this version of the I Ching speaks exactly to the core of my work, and I didn't know this until I started having a look at it. It was I cannot remember how it came across my table, but I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful that it has, because it's unlocked the missing piece in some of my other work that I was using gene keys and human design for. When it says you need to ask each day, oopsie daisy, I dropped the coins, you use the 3-coin method. I've got 2 coins in my hand here. 3 coins. Okay, the 3-coin method, the retrospective 3-coin method. And if you want to go deeper into that, you can go deeper into that. I'm pretty sure I did another video on that. I'll post the link in the cards on that side, most likely. Where you can learn how to cast your own hexagram. And the way you do it just for this particular exercise is you get the 3 coins, you shake them. I've got 3 no's. I don't need to repeat this anymore. You get I've got 3 tails, and tails is no. Okay, so no, no, no. When you get 3 of a kind, you know that's, yeah, cool, I don't need to do that anymore. It's done. So then you can also get yes, yes, no, which means, okay, you do it, but there's more inquiry that's required. You need to get a better question. This book is a way of life, okay? It's not one of these books that you just get and, oh yeah, I've read it and put it on the shelf and just left it alone, okay? If you genuinely want to separate yourself from the cosmic ego, or become more accurately who you really are as an expression of consciousness, this text is going to help you get there if you become devoted to it, okay? 2, deprogramming the spell of original guilt/sin. Picture the phrase, humans are born with original sin and guilt, and the image of an inextinguishable stain on human nature as being dunked in water until the stain is removed. Asked once each following day whether you need to repeat this meditation. If so, repeat it until the answer is no. Why this version of the I Ching uses imagery is because it understands the human psyche and how it works in the body. Where when you picture a human and a stain being an inextinguishable stain, like a birthmark-ish of guilt. And you keep dunking, where it can be yourself, dunking yourself. Or dunking what you see as human nature into water and then washing the stain, okay? Like a baptism. But it's not physical baptism. How many people do you know have been physically baptized and then still repeat the same relationship patterns, the same life patterns, but now they've got a crew of post-baptized people cheering them on? Oh, you just got to pray harder. You've got to find this Bible verse. No, God will test you. Demons are coming. The devil will test you, right? All programming, okay? It's all programming. And it destroys the vitality in the body, and it sets you up for failure when it comes to relationships. Deprogramming feelings of guilt. Whenever you find that you feel guilty of something, say no 3 times to your feeling guilt. Say that again. Whenever you find that you feel guilty of something, say no 3 times to your feeling guilty of whatever it is, and ask the helper that frees one from guilt to free you from it. If you have a whole list of things you feel guilty of, do the mini meditation using the image of water described below, dunking the whole list in the water. And I'm not going to read that next bit. But what I am going to do, is find the definition of the collective ego. Why? Because I think it's going to help a lot of people understand what the ego is and what the collective ego actually is. Because there are a few takes on what the ego is. Let's go. Ego. The individual ego is that composite of self-images and their supporting rationales that a person develops in the course of his childhood conditioning. The child is told that he needs to develop an ego self-image, which is then referred to as his self or his character in order to get along in the world. The ego is thus based on inferiority instilled in the child by asserting that he is insufficient in and of himself to cope with life, and that there is no help for him other than what he can get from the institutions of the collective ego. In order to be accepted by these institutions, he is told that he needs to develop his character, that is, accept the values and rules of the collective ego. Why this is important, how this has crossover with my work. Character is the survival strategy that we use to present to the world. Let's say that again. Character is the survival strategies that we use to present to the world. Character analysis is a technique that Wilhelm Reich created to see how who you pretend to be shows up on your body through your posture, through how you stand, how you walk, how you breathe, how you stand towards the opposite sex or even the same sex. So when we talk about imposter syndrome, it's imposture. Your posture is incorrect for who you really are. There's a conflict between who you think you are or how you think you need to be and who you really are and how you show up. Imposter syndrome is not something that you can think your way through. It is something that is hard-coded through the survival patterns in the body, through how you survived childhood, through how you were convinced to be something else, to be compatible with the ego and the collective ego. Now I jump to collective ego. ABC. Culprit. Collective ego. Collective ego. The collective ego is the parent of the individual ego. The collective ego is the name given to the totality of mistaken ideas and beliefs about the nature of the cosmos, about human nature, and about the human place in the whole. The visible side of the collective ego is found in the social structures and institutions that have been erected to support the human-centered view of the universe. Since it is a false construct that has no cosmic reality, the collective ego depends totally on the life energy it steals from people's true natures. To do so, it creates the individual ego, a false mental program that is introjected phrase by phrase and image by image into the psyche of the young child, where it begins to live a life of its own. Parasite, okay? Parasite. The ego is a parasite, and the collective ego is a follow-up parasite that the loosh goes to. Why this is important and where we are today is a lot of spiritual leaders are being exposed for their parasitic nature. They have huge followings. But what they do is they subscribe more people to the collective ego's model of being the center of the universe. Because they feel like they're at the center of the universe. They're also carrying the same programming that this is how you get success. This is how you become enlightened. This is what consciousness is. But what people who subscribe to this don't know is that these people who are parasitic are killing you slowly through their teachings. Killing you slowly, killing you softly, killing you with love, killing you with kindness, killing you with these false virtues of how you need to show up, bypassing the animal body. People that get sucked into these teachings already have a survival pattern of not feeling like they're welcomed here on Earth. It's the perfect model. Don't feel like you feel safe here on Earth. Here, subscribe to this and we'll help you ascend. We'll help you pull you even further out of your body. We'll help you pretend to be loving and you love Earth and you love animals, but you hate humanity, right? But then we'll try and market that we love humanity by all this high vibe, high five, cuddle puddle content. But at the deep roots of all of it is a hatred for humanity, a hatred for themselves, because they don't want to be here, because they don't want to be in their animal body. They don't want to be here on Earth in the stinking flesh, because they have to deal with people, and people irritate them. People are annoying. People have opinions. People are unsafe. So this is where the collective ego and the ego come down to an individual level, where as an individual, if you subscribe to this text, if you choose to go across the great waters, cross the great waters, and be curious about this, you end up being gifted more power than a lot of what your ego can cope with. But the helpers can help you if you keep on coming back to them. The sage can help you if you keep on coming back to them as friends, not as servants of humans, as friends, as anybody else. They're like, hey, I need to do this thing. Can you help me? Can you help me move house? Right? Can you help me find some clients? Can you help me? I'd love your help. I need help. Asking from that place, that humble place, and you'll either get a yes or no, or directed through this version of the I Ching to a hexagram or a page that will direct you to the deprogramming procedure. What you're still saying yes to unconsciously, that's stopping you from saying no to something that's outside of integrity for you, uniquely you. So when the collective ego says you need to go listen to that person, you need to come back into yourself and find the grounding in you. But if there is no grounding in you because you don't feel welcomed here, that's what you need to address first. And the I Ching will direct you wherever it is that you feel like you need to go. But guilt is one of these things that will try and reprogram itself into you. Why? Because it's the backdoor hack for humanity, because it's been installed as a child. That when you try to separate yourself from the collective ego, guilt will come in there. So many of my longer term clients, when they try and separate themselves from the family system, oh, what are you separating for? What about your children? Are you being a good mum or good dad by doing this thing? What about the kids? What about this? What about that? What about me? Guilt is a powerful undoer of a lot of people's inner work. And until you can see it for what it is, then you keep on getting dragged back no matter how much inner work that you think that you have done. Because the helpers and the sage work at the atomic level. Beliefs are atomic. It's atomic. They can rearrange the molecules that form the memory at a somatic, And at an atomic level, it's beyond the control of humans. We are one in the field of consciousness, and you can ask things that exhibit themselves as different to humans in consciousness to help you as a human within the field of humanity to grow deeper into yourself and become who you really are here to be, so you can become an example for your kids and people in your sphere of influence, if you choose to, if that's what you're called to stop them being parasitic hosts for the ego and the collective ego, and then getting hijacked by spiritual gurus because your child just has no discernment for what that kind of maladjusted person or feeling feels like, because they've been disconnected from their common senses. Ego disconnects you from your common sense, and it's your common sense that can detect that guru smells bad. He reeks of death. That's what I have for you. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to all of that on guilt. I have another one coming up this Sunday, Hexagram 47. It's scheduled to go. This one felt really important to do a redo. My energy is different. I remember I had a look at the old version of guilt. It's a bit stodgy and slow. This one's a bit more lively, a bit more upbeat and Year of the Fire Horse type energy, if you get my drift. All right, mad love to you all. Bye.